All right, let's jump into it. It's kind of a light me talking at you presentation, and hopefully we'll have some Q&A. We'll take it wherever you want to go. Let's see. First, some recognition. So this, actually for the past 2 months, we hit a likelihood to recommend on our Press Ganey of above 89.3, which is what our target has been for the year. So we don't have our year average at 89.3, but we've had a couple of months there, these numbers are hard to move, and so this is a result of a lot of effort, basically looking at where we're underperforming and how we can bring some recognition and attention to how the patients are experiencing care. And so trying to bring all of our units up to a high level of performance there. So that's great news to see system-wide we're hitting the target. We recently received a perfect score for recognition as a leader in LGBTQ healthcare equity by the Human Rights Campaign. So that acknowledges the work that we do here at Parkland to recognize both as a workplace and as a provider of care for the LGBTQ community. So great to see us staying on top with that score. The Regional Hispanic Chamber, the Regional Hispanic Contractors Association recognized us for our MWB work. And along those lines, Vizient, which is a major group purchasing organization, over $100 billion in purchasing nationwide. We are one of their GPO members, and they recognize our supplier diversity group for their excellence in inclusion, basically for including MWBE, small businesses, MWB businesses in the work that we do. This was they give out, Vizient gives out a few of these, like there's one in performance excellence and supply chain, and there's several other categories, but the supplier diversity one is the one that we achieved top performer in the country in that area, which is a great acknowledgement for the work that Corey and Moses and their group does. All right, let's see. Did I skip one? Nope. All right, so Pathways to Excellence. Jackie said if I didn't mention Pathways to Excellence, I don't know what, but it wouldn't be pretty, right? Okay, so this morning there was a ribbon cutting for the Nursing Center of Excellence, which is great too. We'll be on the second floor above the lobby. That space that will be able to be used for teaching space and development for our nursing workforce, and it's a shared space. So it's not only nursing, but it was done with nursing in mind to create a space where we could truly focus on the development, career development, publications, a lot of the stuff that we want to be able to pay attention to so we can be a leader in nursing, both in recruiting and in retaining a high quality nurse force. And so that happened this morning, and that's all tied into this. But Pathways, the survey is open until May 30th. So if anybody in here who's a nurse who hasn't completed your survey, if you have good things to say, please sure to complete it. No, everybody complete it. So it takes about 15 minutes, so it's convenient, and we want to get your feedback. Let's see, and you can see the instructions here, and you can get that from the website too. All right, this is May. So does everybody understand what May of 2018 means? 5 years. The 5-year corporate integrity agreement runs through May of 2018. We expect, how these things wind down, your guess is as good as mine. I think we'll continue to have some work that's being done around completing the report. Jackie Sullivan, you are like front and center in that first one, I remember. But that report will happen again in the next several months. And what we expect to get at some point is a letter from the OIG saying you've graduated from your corporate integrity agreement. That doesn't mean we're finished with the work, obviously. The amount of effort that's been put into for our work around quality, safety, compliance, that foundational work was painful in a lot of regards, but it's made us a better organization, and so that work will continue. And so while we will be sort of have graduated from outside oversight, we will now be responsible internally for having our own internal oversight and continuing on all the great work that's been done around making this place a safe place for patients. And so that activity will continue. Let's see. I totally ignored my prompts on the slide, but we had a great completion. We have to do our training. We had great completion of the training this time around, and I think I said everything else there. All right, so survey updates. We're in the window for Joint Commission. So when you get those notices on Ready, Set, Parkland Now, take a few minutes to look at them, because those are just prompts. That's what you're going to get asked by a surveyor. They can talk to anybody in the place. So take a few minutes to look at those and digest those and make sure that information is getting down to everybody in your department. We've done some mock surveys. We found some areas that we need to work on. I know we've talked a bit about those areas where the surveyors will focus. We've done a lot of work around ligature risk, which is an area of focus. Sterilization is another area that they're focusing on. What else am I missing? There's a couple of other ones. Anybody? Fire. Yeah, you know, we're still, just a bit over about 2.5 years into this facility. And so we haven't had a reason to really have a large-scale drill. So we've done a lot of smaller scale, training around what to do in case of a fire. But when it's not real, you may not pay as close attention. It's a new facility. It's a big facility, and so it's important for everybody to know when that alarm goes off what you do. Who stays in place, who evacuates, and so pay attention to that one, because there will be questions, and one from the survey, but more importantly, if something really happens, we want people to know the right answer. So if you're in an area that stays in place, we should know that you're in an area that stays in place. And if you're in an area that's supposed to evacuate, you know what that response is as well. So pay attention to those things and know that we're in that window for our Joint Commission survey. Our strategic plan update. There's a lot of activity going on with strategic plan. So I'll take Dr. Porce's question. He does this in leadership all the time. Who knows the 5 pillars? I won't ask anybody to say all 5 of them. Any of the pillars of our strategic plan. Jackie knows one. You go as far as you can. How about that?
Value, experience, teaching, learning, service.
I should have known. There you go. So those are the things for value, engagement, both on the employee side and on the patient side. What was the next one you said? Education and research, population health, and partnerships. So those are our pillars, and there's a lot of activity that happens underneath those pillars. We picked 3 as a system-wide goal for people to focus on, to try to get everyone's attention around a few of these major things. Very difficult to find something that applies to everybody. But these things we think do. Everybody can have a role in these. And the unique thing this year is attached to these 3 goals, there's a 2% incentive at the end of the year. So depending on how we score on these goals, everyone across the organization can earn up to 2%. That will come out sometime toward the end of the year once we're able to score for the entire year. So patient experience, I mentioned this to you earlier, the marker we use on that is likelihood to recommend. There's a lot of components to that Press-Ganey survey. We settled on this one because it was a common metric on the inpatient and outpatient side, and so we wanted everybody to have a part in it. And so we're still in the red here. Our average is 88.7. We got to get to 89.3. The good news is we're trending up, and so we have time to finish out the year strong and try to hit that goal. Our quality and safety goal has to do with 2 patient identifiers, and we wanted to reduce the 2 patient identifiers with a harm score of 3 or higher. We're very close to the amount of reduction, a 10% reduction year over year, or less than 3.1%, and we're at 3.2%. So we're right there. Pay attention to 2 patient identifiers. And this is, throughout the organization. When you encounter a patient, you want to make sure we're doing stuff to the right person. So always ask for that 2 patient identifier. And then cost of care to stay within budget, and actually we're doing a good job of that, both from your efforts to be efficient, and on the revenue side, we're doing a good job as well. So we're hitting the mark on that third one. So anyhow, close on 2, we're hitting the mark on the third one. We want to hit all 3 of them. So maintain a focus on those. Let's see. Okay, I'm sure people are curious about how the sale of the property is going or not going. We came up to the end of our contract period with our buyer. We had a buyer, we had negotiated a deal, and the buyer was not able to close, didn't have his financing lined up by the time that the contract expired. Had asked for an extension, was willing to put some more money into the deal to get an extension. Actually, he had $3 million of non-refundable money in the deal, but the board was not willing to extend further, and so we terminated the contract and we went back out to market. What does that mean for us? Well, first, so the property, you've seen a sign in front of it, the property is back out on the market. We're accepting offers now. People are getting interested in it. We've had the broker has done, I think, 19 memorandums to share information with potential buyers. And then the buyer we had under contract is also still very interested. He has a lot invested in that property. He's got people going through it. And so we do expect him to come back as well once his financing is lined up. And he sounds positive or encouraging that will happen. And so practically, we put it back on the market, I think, April 18th. By law, we have to market it for at least 30 days, so nothing can happen until May 19th. And then after that, our broker will look and see what the interest is, when to ask for bids, and if there's a bid from the old buyer, that process could go quickly because his diligence period, where they examine the property and all that's been done. If it's a new buyer, then we expect it to take another, probably till the end of the year, to wrap things up, because there would be a negotiation period, a due diligence period where they get into the property and look around and find out what's wrong with it, and renegotiate and all of that business. And so that's where we are. We still expect to sell the property. Timing has, it's a bit of a curveball now, because we were trying to line up sale, building of space, or leasing of space, to transition from the old property to the new, and that's going to that gets a little trickier. But I will tell you, because we are confident that we will eventually sell the property, and we were going to have to move people. And we have been down the path at planning for the space to relocate people, that we're going to continue to plan that space to relocate. And so the planning for the new clinic building that will go just on the other side of the DART track from RJA, that John's group is still working on that, and we expect that work to continue to get done. We've looked at our financing. We're confident that we can move ahead with that. The breast center, which at one point in time was going to be on the second floor, or the upper floor above the ambulatory surgery center, that now will be incorporated into the new clinic building. It's a much cheaper option for us, and so that work will continue to happen despite the setback on the sale. And John's groups continue to look at leasing space for office functions for people that will have to move, as well as parking. But the ones that we know we are moving ahead on in the short term is the breast center, the clinic building, building out the old church, up on across from the Jimmy John's, building that out for administrative space to get to help us get out of Building B. So that work is on go, and then the balance of the office space that we're going to need to get the parking, that will come once we get more certainty around the sale. Okay. This has come up in a number of settings about, when the building was originally designed, we were on stage, off stage, everything. All the employees would use stuff behind the walls, and the patients and families would use what's called the on stage stuff, and that would be, the gold elevators and the, what colors? The blue elevators right here. And we heard a lot from employees that that was either inconvenient, or we thought that it made sense to have employees use the on-stage elevators as well. And so we've made a change in policy and approach. And so now we welcome everybody to use all the, well, the employees to use all of the elevators. I love what the OTM group and Vishal's group has done around messaging for this. Can we play that? So I wanted to show you. I think this is running on the TVs, but take a minute to look. It's about a minute and a half.
As you know, new Parkland Hospital was designed with on-stage and off-stage areas, and it was intended that staff are always to use the off-stage areas. Several staff have voiced concerns about this and find the on-stage at times much easier to access. I'm pleased to announce that staff may use on-stage elevators available at new Parkland Hospital while keeping in mind some guidelines. First, connect with people, interact with patients and each other when possible. Use the heads-up, phones down principle. Help patients and guests. We're here because of them and for them. Safety is a priority. Please be alert to any risk or areas of concerns for the patients, team members, or of course, the hospital. When entering the elevator, please allow guests, especially patients, to enter first and exit first. Stretcher or bedridden patients being transported and emergency personnel should always be given first priority for all elevators and at all times. Remember, the patient transport elevators are prohibited for employee use except when transporting patients. Any staff transporting a cart to move food or other supplies must use off-stage elevators. Attentive customer service and confidentiality are important, and personal remarks and conversations should be limited to what is appropriate. And of course, stay healthy. All employees physically able to do so are encouraged to use the stairs, especially if they're going up a floor or two. Thank you for your ongoing commitment to Parkland, our patients, and their families.
All right, so I thought that was a great approach, right? Recognize that employees were interested in the elevators and sort of making a deal and saying, okay, use the elevators, but you're also, remember, you're always on. Whether you're on stage or off stage, you're on. And so interact with our patients and families and be helpful along the way. So anyhow, that's a we heard you moment, and I think we came to a good place there. Let's see. Another one, we're testing out a shuttle right now because we have heard, I told our group after the last town hall, I can't go back to Chase if we don't have a shuttle in place. So we've heard this one a few times, still trying to sort out what works and what might work there. But what we have done is we've started a trial, and it runs on Tuesdays. We're going to try to get some information, see how it works, and if it's something that we think we can, adjust to a more permanent solution. But we're testing that out right now to see, how we can make it easier for people to get back and forth to campus for the business that they need to do, kind of the routine employee business that they need to do on campus, whether it's occupational health or OTM or what have you. And then new employee orientation has been modified. This morning was the second group. We're going back to every week, and it's a much more interactive format. Paul, I guess you led this effort. I think it's great. I mean, this morning was a big crowd. The first one was a small, looked like manageable crowd. This was bigger, so it'll challenge your interactive, approach. But so employees will meet. We won't go. They won't join their managers for lunch. They stay together. They got them in interactive groups, recognizing that they're not going to get everything on that first Monday. That it's going to be they'll get a dose of orientation over time, and so the initial day we'll have some time for them to interact and try to kind of get acclimated to our values, our culture, what our mission is, and then have time to sort of think and apply those things as they go. So my limited experience is people just look more engaged, and it looks like a better format. I don't know, Paul, what your early returns are on that.
Yeah, just the whole feel. I was walking over this morning and I heard laughter. It's like, where's that coming? It's coming from Neo. I've never heard laughter coming from a new employee orientation before, and then I was able to walk in. So yeah.
That must have been my presentation. All right, so so that's another kind of a good example of us adapting, and Paul's group has done a great job there. And I think this is my last slide. And just some follow-up around employee engagement. Jackie told you one of our pillars of the strategic plan is around engagement. That's both the patient side and the employee side. And so we're in the kind of we're in the midst of our action plan. We got the survey last year. We asked every department to go back and look at what they were picking up from the engagement survey and then develop an action plan. And so each one of these objectives, we had objectives targeted at different categories of employees. And so at the employee level my team works together. They're expected to come up with action plans that revolved around teamwork. And at the management level, I'm involved in the decisions that affect my work. And so we asked them to come up with action plans that actually invited people in to share decision-making, that sort of business. And so Vishal's group, again, has done some pulse surveys. And what they've learned is that people want better visibility to their action plans. So you can get that information. You can get that from posters from guest and volunteer services and display that so that everybody in your area knows. It was designed to be very simple. We'd pick just a couple of action items that were specifically targeted around these areas to try to address some of the concerns that we heard in the survey. That survey will come out again in August, and we'll see, if people feel like we're making a difference. And the whole idea is, if we certainly want people to feel good about coming to work here. If engagement is low, that's a bad sign for us as leaders, right? Because the work intrinsically has value, and people should feel good about the work that we're doing here. And if that's not happening, then we need to examine sort of what that work environment is and how do we address that work environment so people can feel good and excited about coming to work here. It's hard work, there's no doubt about it, but it's also meaningful work. And so we're taking the feedback that we get from the surveys. We're doing a lot of targeted interventions, trying to identify where those experiences aren't as positive as they should be, and try to boost that up around the organization. So, and I think that's it for the slides. Now we'll just open it up and see what you guys want to talk about. Yep.
Eventually, when we can no longer use the ED garage, there's concern about where the parking structures would be in the distance.
Yeah, John, you want to talk? So we have a parking study going on right now. You want to talk a little bit to that?
So for the record, getting money on this, we're 3 for 3 and having this question asked. We will lose the Motor Street and the ED garage at some point, but that's kind of up to the new buyer and when that's going to happen. So we will be building exactly enough parking spaces to accommodate that on this side of the street. So probably 2 decks is the likely solution. One probably in the Tex Oak area, Tex Oak and Butler, and one adjacent to the new clinic. And the total number of spaces likely to be about 3,000. But we actually have a professional parking survey that's being completed this month that will tell us, is it 3,200? Is it 3,000? Well, it doesn't sound like 200 spaces may not make that much of a difference. At $15,000 to $20,000 per parking space, Parkland needs to be right on with what we do.
Did I do it? What else? Yes.
Is OTM any further along with trying to develop a plan for telecommuting or work from home or some situations like that for staff, after a patient impact?
Okay, so the question was, is OTM any further along developing kind of a working at home option, right?
Can I answer that?
Fran?
So last year we developed, with Operational Excellence, we developed in collaboration with OTM a new policy for work from home. And the policy is being piloted with a few groups to make sure it's actually bringing the value we expected. And I think OTM, I don't know if somebody from OTM is here, but I think the plan is to allow the policy eventually later this year. So all the steps have been taken. It's just a matter of finalizing and actually publishing and making it formal for everybody. Did you answer?
It's not just for like IT.
No, so the policy is going to be a Parkland policy for everybody. Then the leader of each area will decide whether their staff will be able to work remotely or not, depending on the type of job they do. The policy just defines kind of the process, the general guidelines. So for example, if you do a work that requires a lot of interaction with people on site, then probably the manager would say that's not a good, a good position to work from home. But there are a lot of repetitive jobs that don't really require a lot of interactions with other people. At that point, the manager, and IT is not the only one, IT, HIM, there are a lot of different areas, including the hospital, that have that kind of job. So they will be able to work from home. Eventually, it's going to be up to the department leader to decide whether their staff is suitable for that type of solution.
Francesco, two questions.
Yeah.
Number one, there's something that to be said for being physically present at least sometime, for that sense of community and what we call engagement. I find the team that I work with really inspires me to even produce more. So will there be a hybrid where perhaps X amount of the FTE time is at home and there might be in-person requirements for things that would include engagement and sense of community?
Absolutely. Actually, that's big for the policy. And the pilot we did started very slow with saying we work from only 1 day a week and see how it goes and then go up. So the policy allows flexibility to say it's going to be either 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, a week from home or whatever. It's really up to the type of job and kind of like the requirements of the position, but that's absolutely built into the new document.
And
Yeah.
the second question briefly, I support the effort. I just wondered about, is there a quantitative value that we placed on measurement of output? So like, if, Jackie Sullivan has to produce X number of things by the end of this week or something like that?
Yes. So again, for the pilot we did, eventually it's going to be up to the department leader to define what productivity measures that would be monitored, and the department leader would be responsible for making sure the employees actually performing as good as when they come here and work on site. But for example, for the pilot, we did a pilot with the talent acquisition partners. So for every day they work from home, we actually came up with 15 different metrics of how many interactions they have, how many resumes they screen, and all of that. So we were really thorough in developing that productivity tool. But in the policy, we didn't feel like we could define to what level of detail everybody needs to measure productivity. Is going to be up to the leader to define, okay, it's going to be these 3 items, 2 items, or whatever makes sense. But yes, it's required that the manager will keep monitoring the productivity of the employees, and the productivity shouldn't go down. Yes.
And Jackie, I'm with you. There are people who struggle working from home. There are people who it's just not for them. They're much better working in that kind of environment. I think we want to make it so that there's flexibility both ways.
Yeah, and I'll just echo those points. If we don't have good performance metrics, if we can't have accountability, then it's not going to be a position that's going to lend itself to working at home. So we've got to be able to have objective standards that we can track, so that we can be sure people are actually working from home, right? I think there's some great value there, some great potential, and we need to make sure that we've got the accountability that goes along with it. What else? How are we doing on our survey responses?
Well, as of Friday, we had 2,730 nurses who had taken the survey over a span of 3 days. So we hit 66% response rate, and we were shooting for 60%. But that's not to say that we can slow down. We still need as many nurses to take the survey. In fact, we're targeting at least 80% participation. So if you're a nurse and you haven't taken the survey, take it. If you're not a nurse and you see a nurse, tell them to take the survey.
Yeah, so that's, I heard some remark about, all the attention nursing's getting right now. That's good that nursing's getting a lot of attention. It's half our workforce, and it is that's who's taking care of our patients. And if we can do things to advance nursing, so the pathways is all about development, career opportunities, how we can recruit, how we can retain, and if we can do that successfully, then we'll see what we're seeing now, actually. Our vacancy rate in nursing is lower than it's been probably since I've been here. Our turnover has gone down. So this work translates into reduced turnover. That saves us money as an organization. That longevity translates into better patient care. And so anyhow, the attention to nursing is a good thing. I mean, that doesn't mean we're not giving attention to other parts of the organization, but it's a huge chunk of the organization, direct impact on our patient care, and if we can make that a stronger area, then the whole place is going to be better. That's going to be reflected in our in our financial performance. It's going to be reflected in our quality and safety performance. So it's good to hear, and I know there's a lot of excitement around it right now, and we've got great leadership, and so you guys keep it up. What else? Anything? Lauren, John, you were at the earlier sessions. Anything we should talk about?
I mean, they asked the question about parking.
All right. Well, yeah, parking's always the hard one.
And I hear that anybody in building B, there's nobody to ask, what am I leaving building B?
Let me say, I'll mention, I meant to say something about this, and that is, we've had some challenges in the past couple of months around pressure related to psychiatric care. There's been some things going on in the community. We lost a lot of beds in the community over the past several months. We're seeing some more traffic here, both on the acute side, turns into chronic, but we're seeing more activity around behavioral health. And that translates into not only sort of increased traffic through the ED and our psych ED, but also it's spilling over into the floors of the med-surg areas. And we've had a couple of incidences where patients actually had assaults on staff upstairs on the med-surg unit. And so it's tough right now because the community was not prepared for the increase, for the loss of capacity outside of Parkland. And as in so many areas, when there's community pressure, it finds its way to Parkland, and it preferentially finds its way to Parkland. And our job is we stand up and we try to figure out how to deal with it. So there's a lot of effort going on right now in how we can increase our capacity to deal with the behavioral health pressures. It's a community response, and we're not working in isolation. We're working with the other providers in the community to see how we can get everybody to do their part. But one thing's for sure, Parkland's got to do our part because we're the community hospital, we're the county's hospital. We get a lot of money from the county, and this is a county need right now. And so part of our obligation, responsibility, is to stand up and how to figure out how to meet this. Now, so part of the leadership's responsibility is how can we do that safely so that you guys are able to provide the care and do so in a safe environment. So there's a few things that have been going on. We've intermittently been in the old discharge lounge to try to create some capacity to unload the ED. We've now found a more permanent, is permanent the right word, John? Place in Pod T, which is the unit that was built as a jail unit, but never turned on as a jail unit. So it's adjacent to the emergency department. We had offices in there. So that all the office functions have been moved out, and now it's turned into an extension of the ED for psychiatric observations. So that takes off some of the pressure, and we can expand that space more, but we have to be able to staff it. So OTM is doing a great job at sort of getting aggressive in recruiting, and we're recruiting everything from psych techs, psych nurses. You guys can tell me what else. APPs, providers, the full spectrum, so that we have providers to be able to turn on extra capacity. So we found space. We're bringing on providers right now. That's on the emergency side. On the inpatient side, We also received a waiver from the state to double up some beds up on 17. And so we now we have the ability to increase that capacity from 14 to 22. We'll be able to double up 8 rooms. It'll probably come in tranches of 4. And that's coming soon. And then one of the facility plans that we didn't mention is that we have shelled space up there. We're shelled for 6 rooms. We'll build it out doubles, so we'll build out 12 rooms there. We'll pick up a couple of rooms from MedSecure along that hallway. So eventually that'll go from a 14-bed unit to a 28-bed psych unit. That's all in the works now. Trying to create some inpatient capacity and trying to do a better job of creating some capacity for the emergency visits. We've been in active communication, remain in active communication with community partners, with police, about where they're dropping people off. The community's got to share that load. We've had variable success with that. It's something that we continue to work on. I'm happy to talk more about it if people have questions. But one, just to sort of acknowledge that it's an added pressure. There's some risk there, and we're working. When I talked about hiring staff, police is another one, because we know if we have a stronger presence, that's going to make our floors feel safer, quicker response time when things do go awry. And so the police department's been working with us on that as well. So it's kind of a multi-pronged approach to dealing with something that's always been a community pressure, but it's gotten more acute over the past couple of months.
Is there anybody looking at Timberlawn?
At what?
Timberlawn?
Question was, is anybody looking at Timberlawn?
It's going up for sale since they'll shut down.
Yeah. So we are working with NITBO, the North Texas Behavioral Health Authority, the Behavioral Health Authority, that has responsibility essentially for the continuum of care, particularly around Medicaid and unfunded patients. And I can tell you at one point in time, we have had this conversation around Timberlawn. I don't know what the latest is on that, but they are looking for space to be able to expand to do a triage, kind of a drop-off center like they had in Green Oaks that they lost, and then also an extended observation unit. And we've actually talked to them about trying to meet some of that capacity in our space downstairs, where we've already bled over into about half of it. But yes, I know, I don't know the status of that, but I know that they have looked at Timberlawn. I don't know the specifics of that.
Just a quick follow-up. You mentioned the staff assaults that have happened. In the
Staff what? Oh, the assaults?
And I was just wondering, is there a plan to maybe even communicate that to reassure staff as far as what are we doing to keep them safe and to acknowledge that this is happening,
Yeah, that's a good point. So for those that are listening in, Jackie said, is there a plan to communicate what's going on so that staff understand that there's actually, we're aware and people are paying attention to it. And I know Lauren and company had developed some draft. We're working on a communication to get out, trying to work with nursing and with the police and trying to get everybody's input. But we should get something out soon on that so people at least know we're paying attention. We had 2 safety stand downs where leadership went to the units, talked about what happened, talked about what we could do differently to try to be able to address concerns, realizing that it's a big house. There's a lot of activity, but there are specific things that we can do in those units that we learn, and so we're working on that. So yeah, we have a communication that's in the works, and we got to get that out soon. All right. Well, thank you guys.